So for me, I got to the seminary, and I mean, I was so happy immediately. So that was Father
Really?
Chad's first year
Okay.
at the seminary, and him and I became really close. I had a bunch of other really close classmates. Some guys who weren't, like Deacon Jacob and I, we'll see if you have him on the show eventually. He and I did not get along my first year.
Really?
Which we're classmates. We're getting ordained together, and we're super close. But just funny.
I'll ask him about that because he is scheduled to be on the show.
He loves to talk about it. We just love to joke about it. And then Father Richard asked us to drive up to Omaha together, a 16-hour car drive. That's a really good way to either increase your dislike for somebody or decide to really like them. And thankfully, we decided to really like each other. So, yeah, so I remember just being in seminary and being like, wow, this is so fun. I mean, a couple of my best friends, unfortunately, have left the seminary since then from that year. But I mean, I was so happy and so glad that I was in Houston. There was definitely some difficulty in adjusting. Being a seminarian is kind of tough. I mean, you're in your mid-20s and you're like, ugh, like they're telling me what to do all the time. It's like I can't get away. Like, I feel guilty asking to go to a wedding of my good friends. Like it's a shock factor for sure. You know, they control you in a way that like an employer doesn't control. Okay. And then also when you're getting really frustrated with them or certain things, you can't be like, maybe I'll start looking at different jobs. You know, there's nowhere else. You're like, no, my bishop wants me to be here. I'm going to be here. So it took me a while to kind of understand kind of obedience and God's will, but I loved it. I mean, I never really considered leaving for a day. I think for me, the main theme of my seminary has been, I need to keep getting holier. Like there's a real pressure there. You know, the people deserve a holy priest. And so just because I've heard in prayer that I'm called to the seminary, I can't just sit here for 6-7 years and then be a priest and be the priest that the world needs. Like that's not how it works. I mean, I'm going to have to pray. I'm going to have to suffer. I'm going to have to suffer well. I'm going to have to love well. And so there's luckily so many great role models at the seminary. I mean, holiest men I've ever met in my life I met at the seminary. So
some of the previous guests that we had, they struggled with their discernment. We even had one of your friends, a guest who discerned out. And did you, how was your relationship with them watching those guys have a difficult time, and you said that you had a great time?
So I always say I tell guys who enter the seminary that there's two types of discernments, or two types of discernouts. Okay. There's the guys who get really miserable, stop praying, hate everything, and they're like, man, this will be way better when I leave. And it never is. Okay. Like then it's like, oh dang, I still need to like address what I need to address. It had nothing to do with seminary. Okay. And those ones you never like. I mean, unfortunately that happens. There's guys who I don't know if they're being attacked and they should be priests, but just ugly discernments. They kind of leave and you're like, man, there's like no peace. There's no consolation there. Like if it's God's will, you should be able to have some peace in prayer. Yes. And then you have the guys who you start seeing like in the chapel for 2 hours every day. They're really battling. They're really asking God, what do I need to do? And then they leave. And they're loving their life. They're loving the time that they had in the seminary. It was a difficult decision. It's difficult for your relationships to change somewhat. I mean, it's just, I wish it wasn't this way. And I'm still close with some guys who left seminary, but you're always going to be close with the guys who stayed. You know, I mean, there's just a connection that you have. Yes. And there's things that you can laugh about and things that you can talk about when you're living the same life. Yes. You know, it's the same way why married couples get along with married couples. You know, they can talk about their kids and what's going on with them.
Shared experiences.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot there.